Last week it had gotten up to 93 degrees, and so we're definitely in summer here. And I thought it was a good opportunity to discuss, some of the gear that I bring with me out in the field. Now, if you guys are into, camping, if you guys spend a lot of time outdoors, you're familiar with coolers. This is one that I've had for probably about 5 or 6 years. I've used it on most all of my trips until recently. And I really just got kind of tired of having to buy ice. Last year I spent over 200 days out in the field, and so having something like this is an absolute necessity, especially in those hot summer conditions. I've used dry ice, which definitely works for an extra couple days, but ultimately the ice melts and you're left with a lot of water in the bottom that you constantly have to drain. And I'd found myself on numerous trips going to get my food and it's all soggy and it just became a mess. And so I really started looking at other options, and what I found was there's a lot of 12-volt coolers on the market, and so I started looking at those. And so I'm going to show you guys what I found and kind of how it's helped me out in the field as opposed to using one of these old style coolers. So about 3 months ago I really started researching these 12-volt coolers. I went on YouTube, I looked at a lot of reviews, I went on Amazon to see what was available and kind of take a look at what the price ranges were. And I found they kind of varied from $300 up to several thousand, kind of depending on the size and the brand. Now, I kept coming back to a company called ICECO. I'd seen a lot of overland type videos of people using them. I'd seen a lot of people that live out of their vehicles using these, and so I knew it was a reputable company. So I reached out to them and asked them some questions. I told them what I had in mind and what my primary use was going to be for the cooler, and asked them a suggestion on what model to look at, and they suggested the GO20. They said that would probably work for me. It would work well in my Jeep. So I'm going to show you guys a closer look at this. We'll look at the stats, the size, and then we're going to take it out, we'll install it in the Jeep, and then we'll talk a little more about it. I've got the refrigerator on this side, and then on the left side of the unit is the freezer side. And this has a partition which I can remove. Now I'm going to be using this primarily as a refrigerator, and so I don't need the partition. You have a phone app which you can use to adjust the temperature in this for the dual zone. You can obviously adjust it manually, and it's just kind of a neat feature. Now, I don't use this as a freezer. I pull the divider out and I use it as a refrigerator, and I'm able to keep a lot of my stuff cold, any kind of meat that I bring with me for camping, breakfast stuff, eggs, cheese, that sort of thing. And so this holds just about the same amount of food as my 55 quart, but it's in a smaller dimensions. I think the whole unit weighs right around 23 pounds. So the compressor in this unit is manufactured by a company called Danfoss out of Germany. Very high quality compressors. They've got a 5-year warranty, and it comes with the adapter here that's going to convert this to 12 volt. And I'll show you guys more about this. I'm going to be plugging this into the cigarette lighter of both the Jeep and my 500 watt solar charger. Now this unit does have an overload, so in other words, if your battery runs too low, this unit is going to shut off, so that way it's not going to drain everything out of your battery. And it does have a 15 amp fuse here, which you can easily replace, and that's a good safety feature, so you're not going to overload this unit. So you guys can adjust this either manually or with the phone app. Now, I personally don't have a use for using the phone app. I've used it, I've tried it just to see how it works. I usually always have this set to 41 degrees, which keeps my stuff, cold enough, and it's efficient enough to where the compressor in the unit's not going on all the time. In other words, if you're going to have this set, much lower, into the 20s or down to 0, which it'll go. This will go from, whatever the room temperature is down to 0 in about 15 minutes, and so it cools down really quick. But obviously, the lower you have this set, the more that compressor is going to have to run. And so I found, setting this to 41 degrees seems to be pretty efficient, and it keeps things, more than cold enough. Especially when we're driving down the road, we're out in the desert, we're up in the mountains. That seems to be a pretty good temperature, I've found. Now, I have the divider taken out of it. I'm using this purely as a refrigerator, as a single zone. You can drop this divider back in, and it's gonna show both zones, the left and the right, which you can adjust for each. And so I like that feature. I like just using it as a refrigerator. There's more than enough space in here for pretty much everything I need, for more than a couple days out in the field. Now, once I get to my campsite, I unplug the unit from the Jeep's cigarette lighter, and I plug it into my 500 watt power bank. Having that larger cooler back here was taking up a lot of space, and you've got to really bring out a lot of ice to really keep things cold for a couple days. And so having this is definitely helpful to us. My dog and I did take a nice trip down to the beach. I loaded the cooler in the back of our Volvo wagon, and I spent about 5 hours filming for a few different projects. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to use the cigarette lighter adapter, but I was able to plug it into my power bank, and we ran the cooler for right around 5 hours, and it didn't seem to be an issue. And it was a beautiful evening. The GO20 is very well insulated. I know this. I unplugged it, I left it out overnight, and it stayed cool through most of the next morning. After using this unit for a couple months, I can definitely recommend it. It's worked really well for my use. Out of the Jeep where I'm out for multiple days, it's worked really well. It seems to be very efficient. It's got good build quality. I really like the light in here, which makes it really easy, to find things at night. With that being said, this is a great unit. I can definitely see this working for somebody that does, overlanding. Definitely works for people that, live out of their vehicles. With my 500 watt unit, I can run this for right around 15 hours. And that's set to right around 41 degrees. Now, this is going to change, depending on how you have the unit set and whether or not you're using it, as a freezer as well. But it's got a good compressor, 5-year warranty, and it's definitely treated us really well over this past couple months, and I really appreciate them sending me this to be able to give you guys an honest feedback about it. I hope you were able to learn a little. There are a lot more technical reviews. This was more of like a hard use review where we've been using it over time, and it's been really good to us. I hope you were able to learn a little, and I appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you soon.